There are places you must avoid this week, Scorpio, not because you're weak, but because your power is dangerously open right now. You see, most people walk through life blind to the energies around them, but not you. You were born under a sign that feels what others can't explain. This week, that ability becomes a double-edged sword. Because certain places aren't just places right now, they are portals filled with energy so dense, so unfinished, that they pull you back into emotional versions of yourself you thought were long gone. Some of you will be tempted to think, it's just family, it's just the mole, it's just a memory. But you already know better, don't you? This week, you're not just sensitive, you're wide open. And what you let in now can either fortify your soul or fracture your progress. There are 3 specific types of places that have become energetic traps for Scorpios. If you don't recognize them in time, you could find yourself drained, confused, questioning everything you've built, and worse, reopening wounds that took you years to close. But if you stay with me until the end of this message, you'll not only learn which places to avoid, you'll also understand why you keep returning to them and how to finally break the invisible pull they have on you. This week is not about running away. It's about choosing energetic mastery over emotional chaos. And that begins with one thing where you allow your energy to exist. Let's begin. Part 1. The mirror trap. Family spaces that reflect what you've outgrown. There's a strange silence that hits you when you walk into certain family spaces. It's not just the awkward glances or the stale energy in the room, it's something deeper. Something that presses down on your chest like an invisible weight, a signal your body picks up before your mind even understands why. This week, Scorpio, that weight is not your imagination. It's your intuition screaming at you to stay away from environments that pretend to be safe, but are in fact traps for your energy. Because the most dangerous emotional traps are not the ones that look hostile. They're the ones wrapped in familiarity. Let's talk about family gatherings or even casual meetings with extended relatives. From the outside, they look harmless. But inside those walls are layers of unresolved tension, years of unspoken resentment, quiet judgments, and manipulations disguised as concern. You may have felt it before sitting at a dinner table while someone makes a subtle remark about your choices, your appearance, your silence, your ambition. They laugh afterward as if it were a joke, but you felt the sting. And here's the thing about being Scorpio, you don't just feel the words, you feel the intention behind the words, the tone, the timing, the power play. And that's what makes family environments so dangerous this week. Because what most people dismiss as harmless interactions, you absorb as full-bodied energetic attacks. You sit down for a meal and suddenly you feel like you're 10 years old again, trying to explain yourself, trying to earn approval, trying not to be too intense or too different. And the worst part is, you begin to believe their perception of you. You question if you really have changed. You wonder if you're still too much. You start apologizing for the progress you've made. Scorpio, listen closely. These people don't see you as you are. They see you as a mirror, one that reflects everything they refuse to face about themselves. Your intensity, it threatens their emotional laziness. Your evolution, it reminds them of their own stagnation. Your silence, it forces them to hear their own chaos. And so they poke, they joke, they disguise control as tradition, they wrap guilt in love, they plant tiny seeds of self-doubt in your mind and pretend like they're just being honest. But you feel it. And you know it. This week, if you step into that environment, you won't leave as yourself. You'll leave carrying energy that isn't yours. You'll carry ancestral guilt, buried resentment. You'll relive emotional patterns that your soul has already outgrown. And for what? To keep the peace, to not be the one who always skips family gatherings. No, Scorpio. You've done the inner work. You've healed enough to know some spaces aren't sacred just because you share blood. Sometimes the most powerful boundary you can set is simply saying, not this week. Let them call you distant, Let them misunderstand. Your energy is sacred, and this week it's under siege. You're not avoiding people. You're avoiding a version of yourself that you promised you'd never go back to. Life lesson. You don't owe access to people who confuse proximity with connection. Sometimes protecting your peace is more important than proving your love. Part 2. The Illusion Zone. Shopping centers and emotional consumerism. You walk into a shopping mall thinking you're just picking up something quick. Maybe a new shirt, maybe groceries, maybe you're just killing time. But something shifts, something subtle. Your heart feels heavier. Your mind starts racing with comparisons. You find yourself wanting things you didn't even think about this morning. And by the time you leave, you feel unsettled, restless, emotionally fragmented. Scorpio, that wasn't just a bad day, that was energetic contamination. This week, malls and large shopping centers aren't just places of commerce, they're vortexes of emotional chaos, and you, more than anyone, can feel it. Why? Because when hundreds or even thousands of people gather in one place, carrying with them frustration, desperation, financial stress, insecurity, and artificial happiness, that collective emotion doesn't just disappear. It hangs, it builds, it becomes a vibrational fog, and unless you're protected, you walk through it unguarded. And you, Scorpio, you're an absorber. You don't even realize it's happening until you're already drowning in someone else's unresolved emotions. That woman trying on her 6th outfit because she doesn't feel worthy without validation, you feel it. That man angrily tapping his card because he knows he shouldn't be spending money, you absorb it. The teenager staring at a window display comparing her life to a lie, you carry that ache too. And by the time you've walked 30 feet, your body is a sponge soaked in everything except your own energy. Have you noticed how your thoughts start to shift in these places? You begin comparing your life, your achievements, your income, your relationship. You begin questioning if you're doing enough, if you're far behind, even though just hours before you felt content, grounded, maybe even grateful. That's not coincidence. That's vibrational interference. These environments prey on the exact things you've worked hard to detach from. Approval through appearance, validation through money, self-worth through material status. But this week, these illusions are especially loud. They don't just whisper to you, they scream because your psychic walls are thinner than usual. And what makes it worse is Scorpio doesn't do well with shallow desires. You're built for depth, for purpose, for meaning. So when you spend time in places where the collective energy is about empty consumption, it creates a kind of existential nausea. You feel sick, not physically, but spiritually misaligned. And yet, you can't always explain it, you just know something's off. You might even go home and start doubting your path, comparing your minimalist success to someone else's luxury lie, wondering why you don't feel more fulfilled after all you've done. But remember, what you're feeling isn't yours. It's the leftover energy of thousands of people trying to fill internal voids with external distractions. You just happen to walk through the storm they created. Life lesson: not everything you feel is yours. Sometimes the most radical act of self-care is walking away from spaces that feed your doubts with illusions. Part 3. The ghost-filled places that hold the memory of love and pain. You think you've moved on, you think you've healed, you even think I could walk through that place today and feel nothing. But then it happens. You step into that restaurant, the one where they once looked into your eyes and made promises they never intended to keep. You pass that coffee shop, where your hands touched across the table for the first time, and for a moment you believed in forever. You walk by that bookstore, the park bench, the apartment stairwell, and suddenly your chest tightens, your breath shortens, your inner voice disappears beneath a flood of memories you didn't invite in. This is not weakness, Scorpio. This is energetic time travel, because places just like people hold memory. The walls, the seats, the scent in the air, they remember what happened there. And when your feet return to the same ground, your soul reopens the chapter. This week, these places become amplified portals. They don't just remind you, they pull you back. And what returns is not the evolved you, it's the version of you who was betrayed, the version who was abandoned, the one who still hoped, still trusted, still believed. And she takes over. For a few minutes, or maybe for days, you find yourself tempted to send a message, to look them up, to imagine what if. But you know that path, you've walked it, you've bled on it. This week, even a short return to these emotional landmarks can reawaken a pattern you worked so hard to break. Not because you're not healed, but because Scorpio memory is cellular. It lives in your body, not just your mind. And your body recognizes where the heartbreak happened. The mind says, I've let go. But the body remembers the moment love turned cold, the scent of betrayal, the silence after the goodbye. And when you're spiritually open like you are this week, that memory doesn't come back as a thought. It returns as a relived experience. You feel their presence, their words, their absence, as if it all just happened yesterday. But this isn't a sign to revisit, it's a sign to retreat, to reclaim your timeline. Because these spaces don't just store memory, they act like magnets trying to pull you back into a version of yourself you no longer are. A version that clung, that waited, that questioned their own worth based on someone else's failure to love properly. And you, Scorpio, have outgrown that. You are no longer someone who needs closure from another. You are someone who gives closure to yourself. So if you feel the urge to revisit the place where the love story ended, ask yourself, am I honoring the past or betraying the future I've been building? Life lesson: healing doesn't always mean you can return to the place where the wound happened. Sometimes healing means you don't need to return at all. Part 4. What astrology reveals about this week's alignment. Scorpio, what you're feeling this week isn't random. It's not paranoia, and it's not weakness. It's astrological precision. You see, astrology isn't just about horoscopes or lucky numbers. It's a language, a cosmic code that explains the subtle mechanics of your emotional body. And this week, that code spells one clear message for Scorpio: protect your energy at all costs. Here's why. This week, the moon transits through your 12th house, the house of isolation, the subconscious endings, karmic baggage, and hidden truths. And when that happens, Scorpio's inner world lights up. But the veil between past and present also thins. You feel everything, not just your own emotions, but echoes of what once was. Unfinished conversations, unhealed breakups, old shame still lingering in your cells. Now combine that with Pluto, your ruling planet, forming a tense square with Mercury in a fire sign. The result? Mental overload meets emotional excavation. Suddenly, your instincts are firing, your memories are loud, your sensitivity is heightened, and your energetic shields are low. Under these skies, places that once felt manageable become dangerous. Why? Because you're no longer filtering what's entering your aura. You're absorbing raw, unprocessed emotional frequencies from the environment and from the people around you. Even a quick stop at a family dinner or shopping center becomes a psychic event. You pick up on grief hiding behind someone's laughter. You hear the venom behind a compliment. You sense the insecurity underneath someone's flex. And it's exhausting because you're not just noticing, you're carrying. Normally, Scorpio, you can transmute energy like an alchemist. You walk through storms and come out clearer, sharper, more resilient. But this week, that power is not available. The stars aren't giving you strength, they're giving you insight. This is not the time to fight. It's the time to observe, protect, and retreat. Let's not forget Neptune. The planet of illusion and confusion is forming a misty trine to your sun. And while that can enhance your intuition, it also blurs the lines between what's yours and what isn't. That's why you may find yourself feeling nostalgic without reason, or angry without provocation, or doubting choices that were clear just last week. That's energy confusion, a classic Scorpio trap during Neptunian influence. So what can you do? Simple. You honor the timing, you trust the alignment, and you remember this. Some weeks are meant for pushing forward, others are meant for pulling back so your spirit can recalibrate. This is a pullback week. Life lesson. The stars don't control your fate, they illuminate your responsibility. And this week, your responsibility is to guard the sacred gate of your energy. Part 5. A real case when avoidance was the path to power. Her name was Mariana, a Scorpio born under a November sky with eyes that always seemed to see just a bit too much. She'd spent most of her life mistaking pain for purpose. If it hurt, it must be meaningful. If it drained her, it must be teaching her something. If it triggered her emotions, it had to be destiny. She was, in every sense, the classic Scorpio alchemist, turning darkness into growth, betrayal into clarity, and grief into gold. But what no one told her is that not every shadow is hers to carry, not every room is hers to heal, and not every confrontation is her responsibility. One weekend, not long ago, she got invited to her cousin's engagement party. It was going to be big, a family reunion after years of distance, and something inside her twitched. A warning, soft but steady, don't go. But she didn't listen. She told herself she was stronger now, more mature. She wouldn't be triggered like before. She even rehearsed mantras in the car. I'm grounded. I'm clear. I won't let anyone get to me. But the moment she stepped into that room, it began. The subtle digs, the passive-aggressive smiles, the aunt who joked about her being single at her age, the cousin who made sure everyone knew she had just bought a house while looking directly at Mariana, the grandfather who barely spoke to her but called everyone else by name. At first, she tried to smile through it. She excused herself often to breathe. She told herself, I can handle this. But by the time she got home, something had changed. Not on the outside, but inside, Mariana felt tainted. Her confidence was shaken, her energy was drained, and worst of all, she started questioning her path again. Maybe I'm not as far along as I thought. Maybe I should have stayed in that old job. Maybe I'm the one who's broken. It took her 3 days to realize what had happened. She wasn't triggered by them. She was triggered by the version of herself that they still saw, and she accidentally slipped back into her old skin, and that's when she made a decision. The next time her family gathered, she stayed home. No apologies, no explanations. She lit candles, she journaled, she pulled tarot. She walked barefoot under the moonlight. And for the first time in years, she felt whole. Not because she ran away, but because she chose herself over performance. She later told me something I'll never forget. Avoidance isn't weakness, it's wisdom. I used to believe that showing up made me strong, but sometimes choosing not to enter the battlefield is the most sacred act of war. Life lesson. True strength isn't about enduring everything. It's about discerning which battles deserve your energy and which ones only exist to keep you small. Part 6. Your intuition is the first line of defense. Scorpio, you've always known before others did. You sensed the lie before the words left their lips. You felt the energy shift before the room went cold. You knew they weren't coming back, even when they swore they would. That's your gift. That's your spiritual inheritance as a Scorpio. You were born under a sign that doesn't just think, it feels beneath the surface. But here's the truth that few ever tell you. Your intuition doesn't speak with urgency. It whispers. It arrives as a stomach twist, a throat catch, a pause before you hit send. It shows up in subtle discomfort, in the way your mood shifts for no reason, in the way your dreams speak louder the night before something big. And this week, that whisper is louder than usual, not because you're in danger, but because your energetic field is thinner. You are more open, more permeable, more exposed. That means your intuition is faster than logic. It knows the moment your energy steps toward danger before your thoughts even catch up. But most people never train themselves to listen to that first signal. They override it with politeness, guilt, self-doubt, or ego. They think, I'm probably just overreacting. I don't want to be rude. I can handle it. I've changed. It's just lunch. What could possibly happen? And just like that, the boundary is crossed. You walk into the house, you reply to the message, you show up to the place, and by the time your logic says, wait, your energy has already been drained. Scorpio, this week, you don't need more clarity. You don't need a sign. You already got it. You felt it. And that's enough. When your chest tightens at the idea of going somewhere, when your energy dips just thinking about it, when your silence feels louder than their invitation, that is the message. You don't need to explain yourself. You don't owe anyone a spreadsheet of your intuition. You are not here to convince others of what your soul already knows. Because here's the paradox. Scorpio sensitivity is not a weakness, it's an alarm system tuned to soul frequency. And it only gets stronger the more you listen. Every time you obey that quiet voice, it speaks louder next time. It builds trust between you and you. Chom. So ask yourself, what's your intuition saying about where you're going this week? And more importantly, will you honor it? Life lesson, your intuition is your spiritual immune system. Ignore it, and you open the door to contamination. Trust it, and you build a life where your energy stays sovereign and safe. Part 7, the practice of energetic protection, spiritual tools. You wouldn't walk into a storm without a coat. You wouldn't dive into the ocean without learning to swim. So why walk into emotional battlefields? With your energy completely exposed, Scorpio, your emotional field is your most sacred space. And yet, because of your deep empathy and psychic strength, you often forget that not every emotion, not every frequency, not every place deserves to enter your aura. This week, energetic protection is not optional. It's survival. And it begins with intention. Let me share with you what lifelong Scorpios, especially those deeply attuned to spiritual work, have practiced for years. 1. Energetic shielding visualization. Each morning before you face the world, close your eyes for just a few minutes. Breathe deeply. Feel your spine align. Now imagine a deep indigo light, the color of Scorpio's soul, forming a sphere around your body. It's soft but impenetrable. Inside this light, only truth, love, and clarity may enter. Outside this light projection, jealousy and chaos dissolve before reaching you. Whisper this affirmation: my energy is sovereign. I choose what enters. This is your psychic armor, not to cut you off from the world, but to keep you clear inside it. 2. Salt and smoke. Cleansing rituals. When you've been somewhere heavy like a family gathering, a shopping center, or a memory-laced location, don't just pretend everything is fine. Cleanse. Use sea salt in a bath or a simple foot soak. Let it draw out the energetic residue you unknowingly picked up. Then burn sage, rosemary, or any cleansing herb you resonate with. Move the smoke around your body, especially around your heart, shoulders, and the back of your neck. These are the most absorbent energetic zones for Scorpio. You'll feel the shift almost immediately, as if you're finally standing in your own frequency again. 3. Crystals that shield and stabilize. Carry obsidian for deep protection. Wear black tourmaline to stay grounded. Place amethyst near your bed to calm your subconscious and deflect energetic noise. These are not decorations, they are frequency stabilizers. They bring you back to your natural Scorpio vibration when the world pulls you away from it. 4. The candle of no. Every Scorpio must learn the spiritual power of refusal. Once a week, especially during an intense astrological alignment, light a single candle in silence. Reflect on the energies, the invitations, the conversations that you will not participate in this week. Write them down on a piece of paper. Then burn the paper safely or bury it. Let the universe see your boundary, not in anger, not in fear, but in sacred clarity. You are not rejecting others. You are choosing to protect your own field. 5. Energetic journaling, what's not mine. Each night before you sleep, ask yourself, what did I carry today that wasn't mine? Write down any feelings that came out of nowhere: guilt, doubt, frustration. comparison. Then write, I return this. Visualize yourself handing it back to the source with compassion, but also finality. Scorpio, your heart is not a landfill for other people's discarded emotions. It is a temple, and that temple must remain clean if you're to serve your higher purpose. These practices may seem small, but in spiritual terms, they are seismic. We live in a world where the invisible affects the visible faster than ever. And Scorpio, you were not born to carry the collective's pain without preparation. You were born to transform, but only after choosing what deserves to be transformed. Even a surgeon wears gloves before entering the body. Even a priest clears the space before beginning the ritual. You must treat your life the same. Life lesson, you don't have to shut down to stay safe. You don't have to isolate to find peace. You only need to honor your energy enough to protect it from what was never meant to enter. Part 8, conclusion. The power of choosing where your energy belongs. Scorpio this week was never about fear. It was never about hiding, escaping, or shrinking yourself. It was about remembrance. A remembrance of who you are, of the sacred weight your energy carries, and of the responsibility that comes with that depth. You see, you weren't born to blend in with the noise. You weren't created to tolerate what drains you just to prove how strong you are. You were born to read the room before the room reads you. You were born to walk into a space and feel what no one else dares to name. But you were never meant to stay in those places that try to shrink you back into the past. There is a quiet power in the word no. There is spiritual mastery in the phrase, this space no longer serves who I've become. When you choose to avoid a place, a person, or a pattern this week, you're not being avoidant, you're being aligned. You're not turning your back on others. You're turning toward your evolution. Because every time you say no to an energy that no longer fits, you're saying yes to the version of yourself that you fought so hard to grow into. Let others interpret your boundaries however they need to. Let them call it distance, selfishness, coldness. What they call silence, is sovereignty. What they call retreat, is protection. And what they call avoidance, is transformation. The world doesn't need more people who tolerate everything. It needs more Scorpios who discern what deserves their presence. So this week, walk away. Skip the gathering. Decline the invitation. Take the long way home if it means bypassing an old memory. Because when you do, you'll feel something magical start to return your clarity, your grounding, your power. You'll realize you never lost your strength. You just misplaced it in environments that were never safe for your energy to begin with. And maybe, just maybe, you'll decide to protect your energy not just this week, but every week forward. Because Scorpio, the greatest gift you can offer the world, is not your presence in every room, but your discernment about which rooms are worthy of your presence at all. Final life lesson. You were not born to heal in every space. You were born to choose the space where your healing becomes contagious. And that power, the power to choose, begins now. If this message spoke to something deep inside you, if you felt seen, understood, or gently reminded of your own power, then this space is for you. I invite you to subscribe to the Path to Buddha Wisdom, not just for astrology, but for clarity, for healing, for the quiet strength that comes from knowing yourself. Each week, we walk through what the world cannot always name, but your soul has always known. Turn on the notification bell. Because when a message arrives exactly when you need it, it's no longer just a video, it's alignment. And if you know another Scorpio who needs this truth, share it. Because sometimes one whispered warning can save a whole journey. This is your path. Let's walk it with wisdom.